Not with me in here. Her voice cracked through the air, sharp and cold, stopping him mid-step. The elevator doors hung open, but she spread her arms across the entrance like a barrier only she could enforce. What do you mean? His voice was calm, but the disbelief clung to each syllable. You heard me, she shot back, eyes narrowing. You're not coming in. Shoppers passed by with bags dangling from their hands, but the sound of her accusation cut deeper than the chatter around them. She leaned closer, lowering her tone but sharpening its venom. I know your type. Don't think you can just stand this close to me. He inhaled slowly, the words pressing against his chest like a weight. His hoodie, suddenly too heavy, too loud, became the excuse she needed to cast him as a threat. Someone nearby whispered, "What's going on?" Yet no one stepped forward. Her stance never wavered. He swallowed hard, his jaw tightening, but silence seemed safer than any reply that might fuel her fire. Inside, though, the sting had already landed. This wasn't about an elevator. This was about who she decided he was. The metal doors beeped impatiently, urging movement. Yet she stood firm and the crowd's eyes sharpened, and with one cruel sentence. She had turned an ordinary ride into a public trial. The doors refused to close, as though the entire mall had conspired to make this humiliation last longer. A hush spread across the onlookers. Some leaned against railings, pretending not to notice. Others stood still, pretending they weren't listening when their ears were locked on every word. A teenager fumbled with his phone, lifting it halfway, then lowering it again, unsure if pressing the record would make him complicit or courageous. A woman clutched her purse tighter, whispering to her friend, "Did you see the way he walked up?" He could hear every fragmented remark, each syllable sharp enough to pierce. His body stiffened under their gaze, as if the silence itself had built walls around him. The woman blocking the door tilted her chin high, basking in the audience's hesitation like a performer feeding on stage lights. She didn't need allies. Their silence was enough. He clenched his hands at his sides, fighting the urge to break the spell with words. Yet the suffocating quiet told him if he spoke too loudly, the blame would fall squarely on him. Every second dragged, each heartbeat echoing louder than the murmur of the mall. Then, with a sudden burst, she raised her voice. "He's harassing me!" The words ricocheted off marble floors and into waiting ears. His head snapped up. "What? I didn't even—" "Don't lie!" She cut him off, her pitch rising higher, feeding the crowd's worst assumptions. "Look at him, hovering, trying to scare me. This is exactly what I mean. People like him don't belong here." Gasps rippled. A man muttered, "Is she serious?" Another shook his head but didn't step forward. A couple turned away, too eager to avoid the tension. The accusations painted him in strokes he didn't choose, words meant to strip him of innocence before he could defend it. His hoodie became a symbol, his silence a confession, his very presence a crime. He stepped back slightly, hands raised in instinctive surrender. "I'm not bothering you. I was just trying to get in." But the more he denied, the louder she grew, weaponizing the stereotypes she knew the crowd carried within them. "Intimidating! Out of place! You think I don't see what you're doing?" Every accusation hung in the air like smoke, impossible to wave away. The people didn't need proof. They only needed her words. He could have shouted. He could have demanded respect, demanded truth, demanded justice right there in front of everyone. But instead, he forced his body to stillness, as though motion alone could betray him. Inside. His anger roared like a storm, but on the surface, he swallowed it whole. The burn of humiliation traced itself across his face, visible to anyone who cared to look close enough. His mind replayed her words, each one another lash, intimidating. Out of place, don't belong. They weren't new. They were recycled phrases from a book of prejudice written long before this moment, long before him, Dot. He took another step back, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the floor. It was a retreat, yes, but not out of guilt. Out of necessity, because. He knew how quickly restraint could be twisted into defiance, how easily defense could be labeled as aggression. He'd seen it happen before, in news clips and whispered stories passed down like warnings, So he held it in, carrying the humiliation quietly, knowing every second stretched his patience thinner, And still, the crowd waited for his explosion, hungry for the stereotype to come alive, The balance shifted in the onlookers' hands. Some lowered their eyes, pretending they had better places to be. Others tilted their phones just enough to catch the drama in pixels. A boy snickered, nudging his friend. "She's not letting him in. This is crazy." His laughter wasn't born of joy. It was the nervous kind, the kind that turns pain into entertainment. Across the hall, a woman whispered. "Poor guy, he didn't do anything." But her voice never rose above a murmur, never strong enough to carry weight. Then came the faint chime of a notification as someone uploaded a clip, turning the incident into instant content. Each angle framed him differently. A villain in one, a victim in another. He glanced up and caught the reflection of himself on a phone screen. A single thought pierced him. They weren't seeing him. They were seeing a headline, a stereotype. A story to dissect. The crowd had split in silence, not with words but with choices. Some believed her without question. Others saw through her lies but refused to risk confrontation. And in that division, his dignity was placed on trial. The sharp burst of a flash shattered the moment. Cameras locked onto him as if his humiliation were a spectacle worth preserving forever. Slowly, almost defiantly, he lowered his hood. His eyes met the crowd, steady and unflinching. The fury burned beneath his calm expression, but it was dignity that glimmered brighter. The woman faltered. For a second, caught off guard by the quiet power in his gaze. And in that instant, everyone watching understood. This wasn't just a man denied entry to an elevator. This was a wound carved in public view, irreversible and unforgettable. "Maybe today will be different," he muttered under his breath, tugging the hood a little lower over his face. LeBron James, recognized around the world, cheered in arenas, dissected in headlines, wasn't here to be a star. He just wanted to blend in. Each step through the mall echoed with the ordinary sounds of families, chatter, and distant music. For once, he didn't want autographs, cameras, or whispers about his game. He wanted to walk like any other man with time to spare. But, even under cotton and sneakers, anonymity never felt complete. The hoodie gave him cover, yet he knew it also gave others an excuse to label him. And that weight followed him, no matter where he walked. He thought about the irony. Fame was supposed to be freedom, money, access, endless recognition. But what it really did was strip away the simplest luxury. Invisibility. Every trip outside came with eyes that judged. Some expected greatness in every movement. Others searched for flaws to prove he was just another man who didn't deserve the pedestal. "Can't I just buy sneakers without it being a story?" he whispered, shaking his head. Fame gave him influence. Yes, but it stole his quiet. For her world had built him into an icon. Yet all he wanted today was to be left as himself. The hum of the mall triggered flashes of his childhood in Akron. Broken sidewalks, empty refrigerators, nights when his mother stretched pennies into meals. Back then, the hoodie wasn't fashion, it was a necessity, a shield against cold and against stares that carried assumptions. He remembered the time a store clerk trailed him down aisles pretending to straighten shelves. He was barely 13. "Don't touch that," the man barked, Though LeBron hadn't laid a hand on anything, another memory burned. A police officer slowing his car beside him, window rolled down, voice sharp. "Where are you headed, boy?" "No crime. Just presence. Those scars didn't vanish with NBA championships. Success never erases the sting of being told, wordlessly or directly, you don't belong. And as he walked through polished mall floors, now those ghosts of Akron lingered close, whispering reminders. Even after the trophies, the endorsements, the empire he had built, the treatment hadn't stopped. Wealth opened doors, but it didn't silence whispers. He recalled checking into luxury hotels where staff eyed him twice before offering a smile. He remembered ordering dinner with his family only to have someone comment, "Surprised to see you here." Money insulated him from bills, not bias. Privilege gave him mansions, but not immunity. The insults simply evolved, from direct slurs on childhood streets to coded language wrapped in polite tones. Funny, he thought. You can be celebrated on TV at night and still be disrespected. By morning, old wounds bled in new ways. The stage changed, but the script of racism remained stubbornly familiar. Today was supposed to be different. A mall, some shopping, maybe a snack. Nothing more. No speeches, no cameras, no spotlight. He walked with deliberate ease, convincing himself this was just another Saturday. Yet underneath, he knew better. Racism didn't take breaks. It didn't care about status, fame, or fortune. All he wanted was peace, the kind that comes from being unseen, unbothered, unjudged. But the world rarely allowed him that gift. As he adjusted his hood and blended into the crowd, he whispered to himself, "Just one normal day. That's all I'm asking." "Sir, can I help you with something?" The voice came from behind, sharp but polite enough to mask suspicion. LeBron turned slightly, spotting the mall security guard who had been circling him like a shadow. He wasn't loud, but his posture screamed judgment, watching every movement as if waiting for proof of wrongdoing. LeBron sighed, keeping his tone even. "No, I'm good. Just looking." Yet the guard lingered, hands clasped in front, gaze fixed, as if LeBron's hoodie alone made him a threat. It was a scene he knew all too well. Unspoken racism disguised as protocol. He shifted deeper into the store, refusing to let irritation win. But the truth pressed against him. In a mall where others browsed freely, his presence required surveillance. Not a superstar, not a customer, just another black man being tracked. The sting was quiet, but unmistakable. Settling heavy on his shoulders, LeBron picked up a jacket from the rack, running his fingers over the fabric. Before he could check the tag, a clerk appeared, smiling thin and tone dripping with condescension. "Careful with that one," she said. "It's very expensive." He raised an eyebrow. "I didn't ask the price." Her eyes darted to his hoodie, then back to the jacket. "I just thought you should know, sir. Sometimes people get surprised." The words burned more than the stare. She didn't say he couldn't buy it, but the implication hung in the air. Men like you don't belong in places like this. LeBron kept his voice calm. "Thanks for the warning," he replied, folding the jacket neatly before putting it back. To the world, it was customer service. To him, it was prejudice dressed as politeness, a microaggression that pierced deeper than outright insult. Later, at checkout, he stood quietly in line, hands in pockets. Just as he was about to step forward, a woman swept past him, sliding her items onto the counter. "Oh, excuse me," he said, voice steady. She didn't turn. Instead, she muttered under her breath, just loud enough. "Should have known he'd try to cut anyway." The cashier froze, pretending not to hear. Others in line shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. LeBron clenched his jaw. He had been standing there, waiting like everyone else. Yet the moment played out as if his presence was optional, his Right to fairness negotiable. It wasn't just being ignored, it was being reduced. Her remark wasn't about a line. It was about him, about the color of his skin, about centuries of assumptions that still hadn't died. And silence from the crowd only deepened the wound. He swallowed hard, forcing his breathing into rhythm. Anger threatened to burst. But he knew where that would lead. One wrong word, one raised tone, and he would become the problem. Not the woman, not the prejudice, not the double standard. Him. Always him. His mother's voice echoed in memory. Pick your battles, son. The world's already picked enough of them for you. So he stood still, letting the moment pass, though it gnawed at him inside. Every second of endurance felt like betrayal to himself, but he chose it anyway. Because survival in a world shaped by racism often meant swallowing what should have been shouted. And today, he was still trying to keep the peace. After the purchase, he tried to shake it off, telling himself to focus on the day ahead. He moved through the mall with deliberate calm, as if ignoring the slights could erase them. But fate doesn't erase. It circles back. As he approached the elevator, the same woman from the checkout appeared again, clutching her bags, lips pursed in disdain. Her eyes landed on him instantly, the same cold glance that had dismissed him before. LeBron exhaled slowly, bracing himself. The mall had already given him shadows, suspicion, and slurs whispered under breaths. Now it felt like the story wasn't done writing itself. The doors slid open, inviting them both inside. And with that, the stage was set for confrontation he could no longer avoid. Stop right there! Her arm shot out across the elevator doorway, blocking the entrance as if she owned it. The shopping bags in her hand swayed, but her stance stayed firm. Her voice carried loud enough for everyone nearby to turn their heads. You're not coming in here, she barked, glaring at him with a mixture of fear and triumph. LeBron froze, stunned not by her strength but by the brazenness of it all. Ma'am, I just want to take the elevator like everyone else. Her eyes narrowed. Not with me inside. Not with you. The sting of those words wasn't subtle. They hung in the air, soaked in prejudice, daring him to challenge her. Behind him, a couple whispered. A teenager held back laughter. The hallway seemed to shrink as the elevator bell chimed, waiting for someone to step forward. LeBron clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to push past. But every instinct screamed. This wasn't about an elevator. It was about what she wanted him to represent. A threat, a danger, a man reduced to the color of his skin. And she had chosen to make it public. The woman gasped theatrically, clutching, her bag tighter as though he'd already done something wrong. Did you see that? She cried out, turning to the bystanders. He's harassing me. LeBron's chest tightened. What? I didn't even touch you. But her words were quick, sharp, and crafted for an audience. He followed me here, and now he's trying to force his way in. I don't feel safe. Murmur rippled through the crowd. Phones lifted higher, recording every second. Someone whispered, Is that true? LeBron spread his hands in disbelief. I walked to the elevator, that's all. Yet her performance carried more weight than his truth. Tears, fake but convincing, welled in her eyes as she stepped back dramatically. I shouldn't have to deal with this. Why won't anyone help me? The narrative shifted before he could stop it. She wasn't the aggressor anymore. She had cast herself as the victim. And he, once again, was painted as the villain. Without saying a word, the echo of hurried footsteps cut through the tension. 2 mall security officers arrived, one of them the same guard who had shadowed LeBron earlier. What? Seems to be the problem, ma'am? The taller one asked. She wasted no time. This man, he's been following me. He tried to push his way into the elevator. I don't feel safe around him. LeBron stepped forward, voice steady but firm. That's not true. I've done nothing but wait like everybody else. The shorter guard raised a calming hand. Sir, let's not escalate this. Why don't you just wait for the next elevator? LeBron's head snapped toward him. Wait for the next one? She's blocking the door, lying about me, and you're telling me to step back? The taller officer's tone softened, almost patronizing. It'll be easier for everyone if you cooperate. We just want to avoid trouble. Trouble. That word, again, loaded with implication. He looked at the woman, now smirking behind her fake tears, then back at the guards who chose to see him as the problem. The betrayal cut deep, not because he expected fairness, but because the authority meant to protect neutrality had bent so easily under prejudice. And still, no one stepped forward to defend him. The hallway was no longer just a hallway. It was an arena. A dozen phones pointed in his direction, little red lights blinking as strangers recorded a story already framed against him. Some people whispered nervously, debating what was happening without daring to intervene. Others kept their eyes glued to the floor, unwilling to get involved. LeBron scanned the faces, searching for a shred of humanity, but all he saw was curiosity. To them, it wasn't racism unfolding, it was entertainment, a live show of public humiliation. Why's he so aggressive? One voice muttered. He doesn't look dangerous. Another countered softly, But the loudest response wasn't words. It was silence. Silence from those who knew better but chose to keep still. LeBron felt it pressing on him harder than the accusations. The silence wasn't neutral. It was complicity. And it left him standing alone, exposed under the harsh weight of discrimination in plain sight. Emboldened by the guards at her side, the woman straightened her shoulders and spoke louder, making sure every camera caught her words. This is exactly the problem, she sneered. People like him don't belong here, always causing scenes, making everyone uncomfortable. The phrase landed like a knife. People like him. Not a man, not a customer. Not an individual, just a category, a stereotype. A box she had stuffed him into without hesitation. LeBron's fists curled at his sides, but he forced himself still. Her smugness wasn't ignorance. It was cruelty, sharpened by the confidence that no one would call her out. And in that moment, the cruelty wasn't just hers. It belonged to every bystander who stayed quiet, every guard who nodded along, every system that let such words echo unchecked. The rage inside him threatened to erupt, but he swallowed it whole. A slow breath, a pause long enough to steady himself. If he raised his voice, he would confirm every stereotype she wanted the world to see. If he pushed back, the cameras would catch only the reaction, not the cause. So he stood tall, silent, letting his dignity shield him when justice would not. But silence wasn't strength, it was survival. And survival always carried a price. The humiliation was no less real just because he refused to show it. As the tension thickened, he shifted slightly, and his hood slipped back. A sliver of his face came into view, enough for murmurs to ripple. Through the crowd. Wait. Doesn't he look familiar? Someone whispered. But the guard at his side didn't blink. Recognition never crossed his face. To him, LeBron was still just another black man being managed, dismissed, contained. The irony burned. Fame meant nothing here. Wealth meant nothing here. All that mattered was the hoodie, the skin, the assumptions stitched into both. And the crowd's curiosity only deepened. The whispers grew louder, threads of speculation weaving through the air. Is that really him? Nah, can't be. Phones flashed brighter, capturing angles, storing pieces of the injustice to be replayed endlessly online. The silence that once held the crowd captive broke into restless chatter, the kind that built pressure in every direction. LeBron stood, at the center of it, breathing slow, fighting to maintain calm while humiliation pressed against him from every side. The moment felt fragile, teetering at the edge of explosion. And everyone there knew. The story wasn't done yet. "Wait! That's him!" The voice cracked through the tension like lightning. A teenager, eyes wide and phone shaking in his hand, pointed toward LeBron. The words weren't whispered. They rang out, echoing through the stunned crowd. Heads swiveled. Conversations paused. The weight of recognition rippled outward, one person after another piecing it together. "That's LeBron," someone else murmured. "No way!" The air shifted, disbelief turning into a collective gasp. The silence that once smothered him fractured into excitement and awe. The woman at the center of it all blinked rapidly, her lips parting but no words coming out. Her control over the narrative faltered, slipping through her fingers the moment. Truth was spoken aloud. LeBron didn't move, didn't flinch. He let the revelation spread on its own, steady as the crowd began to stir with new energy. The shift had begun. In an instant, phones shot higher, no longer trying to hide. Whispers exploded into shouts, the atmosphere flipping like a switch. "It really is him! Yo! LeBron James is here!" The once passive crowd became electrified, pushing closer, voices clashing over one another. The same devices that had been recording his humiliation now buzzed with excitement, desperate to capture the viral moment. LeBron's name ricocheted through the corridor, transforming whispers of suspicion into chants of recognition. For the first time, the spotlight wasn't on the false accusations. It was on him. And the woman's performance, so carefully crafted, began unraveling under the roar of truth. She shifted uneasily, her face twisting as attention drifted away from her and landed fully on the man she had tried to diminish. But the crowd wasn't done. They were only growing louder. She laughed, sharp and dismissive, clinging to the crumbling control she once held. "Oh, please," she scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "You people will believe anything. He's just another guy in a hoodie trying to scare me." Her words cracked against the rising tide of recognition, but they carried less weight now. The crowd's reaction no longer leaned her way. "Are you blind?" someone shouted back. "That's LeBron James." Her smirk faltered, replaced with a flicker of panic. But pride held her upright, refusing to let her admit the truth. Yet the more she denied, the more the crowd turned. Not on him, but on her. LeBron exhaled slowly, then lifted his hood with deliberate calm. The moment his face came fully into view, the noise shifted again. Gasps gave way to cheers, disbelief collapsing into certainty. There was no mistaking him now, the height, the stature, the unmistakable presence that filled the space without a word. The cameras captured it all. The same man moments ago accused of harassment now stood revealed, dignified, despite the storm of humiliation he'd endured. The crowd leaned closer, their doubt silenced by the sheer reality of who he was. And for the woman who had mocked him, there was no curtain left to hide behind. Every lie she'd spun was dissolving in real time. The mall erupted like a stadium. Cheers broke out from one corner, echoing like thunder. Others booed loudly, directing their fury toward the woman who had sparked the entire ordeal. She tried. "To play him!" one voice cried. "Shame on you!" another added, finger pointed directly at her. Even the guards weren't spared. Angry shouts tore through the air, demanding to know why security had believed her so quickly, why they had pushed him aside instead of protecting his dignity. LeBron remained still, his silence more powerful than any outburst. The crowd's reaction had flipped the script completely, exposing the injustice in full view. But the woman, once emboldened, now stood shrinking under the fire of their outrage. Her confidence drained like water through her hands. Moments ago, she had been smug, her voice loud enough to dominate the room. Now she stumbled over her own breath, eyes darting from phone to phone, capturing her unraveling. This isn't fair," she muttered, her tone brittle. You don't understand. But no one wanted excuses. Every camera, every whisper, every glare focused squarely on her. The mask of superiority had shattered, leaving only fear and exposure. For the first time, she was the one standing defenseless, her arrogance reduced to ashes under the weight of truth. The guards shifted uncomfortably, their earlier confidence gone. "Sir," one began carefully, we didn't realize." The apology was clumsy, shallow, and too late. The crowd's anger pressed against them just as fiercely as it had pressed against him minutes earlier. Another guard added quickly, "We were only trying to de-escalate, Mr. James. Please understand." But their words rang hollow. The crowd knew the truth. They hadn't tried to calm the situation. They had reinforced the lie. And now, under the blinding glare of cameras and judgment, they scrambled to rewrite their part in a story that had already exposed them. "Ma'am, you'll need to come with us." Security's tone was no longer commanding. It was cold, almost embarrassed. The woman's protests cracked into the noise of the crowd, but nobody defended her. "This is ridiculous! You're all making a mistake!" she shouted, yet every word only fueled the jeers. Phones tracked her every step, capturing the collapse of her arrogance in real time. "Smile for the internet," someone yelled. Laughter followed. Her stride faltered, her face pale beneath the spotlight of dozens of recording lenses. What she had meant to be an accusation had transformed into her own public downfall. Mall management rushed forward, suits stiff with urgency. "Mr. James," one began, voice shaky, "we sincerely apologize. This should never have happened in our establishment." Another added quickly, "We will address this immediately. Please know her behavior does not reflect our values." Their words weren't for him alone. They were for the crowd, for the cameras, for every potential viral headline hanging in the balance. But LeBron stood silent, letting their desperation echo without granting them the relief of a quick reply. Finally, he raised his head, eyes sweeping across the cameras. His voice was calm, steady, unshaken. "You see, I'll be fine," he began, "because I've got a name and I've got a platform. But what about the young black man who walks in here tomorrow, who doesn't, who gets treated like a suspect instead of a customer?" The crowd hushed. "This isn't just about me. It's about every person who's judged before they even get a chance to speak. I can walk away from this. They can't." The weight of his words sank deeper than any outburst ever could. It wasn't rage that spoke, it was truth, undeniable and piercing. Applause broke out, first scattered, then swelling into thunder. Strangers clapped, cheered, some even wiping away tears. In minutes, clips raced across social media, headlines already forming. LeBron turns racism into powerful statement. Hashtags flooded timelines, the moment transforming from personal humiliation into a collective call for justice. The same crowd that had watched in silence now roared in unity, their voices echoing a demand larger than the walls around them. And as the energy surged outward, spreading beyond the mall, LeBron's composure became not just resilience, but a symbol of strength for millions watching. So let me ask you, if you had been standing there in that mall, watching everything unfold, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have stepped forward? And here's the harder question. Did justice only arrive because it was LeBron James? Or should fairness be guaranteed for everyone, even without the shield of fame? If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share it. Let's keep the conversation alive, spread awareness about racism, and push together for the change that's overdue.